o'clock on my official I-6 phone. It is Wednesday, June the 16th, and this is the Community Redevelopment Agency Workshop. Madam Clerk, can I get you to call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Art Grant.
Aye.
Ms. Frances Pawlowski. Here. Mr. Jeffrey Jones.
Here.
Mr. Gary Paytow.
Here.
Mr. David McGraw.
Here.
All right, first thing is downtown Cape. Mark,
Yep.
you are up.
Well, a lot of you probably have questions about this weekend. I don't know what you're talking about. No, we're ready. You know, things are constantly changing. When I came over just for this meeting, right before we left, we just gotten information that really haven't been out yet, but I'll let you guys know. There was supposed to, we only had really one ticketed or type of event that's going to be at the beach. It was at Sea Chasers on Saturday. I don't know if y'all saw that, but we just found out that they have now pulled that event, and they cite it because of circumstances involved and controversies with the event, and they have moved it to a location in Jacksonville. And the tentative location now is going to be out off of St. John's Bluff. That's what's going out. However, it was already a ticketed event. It was supposed to be a beach day and some other stuff on Saturday. So hopefully everybody that was supposed to go to that event gets the updated location, but we don't know. We won't know until this weekend, really, but I will tell you this, in all my years' experience, we are prepared. We have multiple agencies. I can't even begin to tell you all the people that we have resources from. We have manpower. We're going to have our command post starting on Thursday at 11 a.m. going until, we're going to have Saturday, we're going to have a Sunday birthday starting at 11 a.m. until. We're going to have at least 30 officers dedicated to the downtown business district on the hard top, plus another 20 on the beach, not including all of our patrol officers, our visitor officers that are going to be paired up with our regular officers, as well as in the neighborhoods, because we have a lot of VRBOs in Jacksonville Beach, and you know those might be a concern as well. I did go to a hospitality meeting on Monday at Sneakers with the mayor, and they meet, you know, every couple of months. And from what we can tell, all the hotels still are not full, and that was as of Monday. So we did hear that Margaritaville is only going to be about, I think, 60% because they don't have the employees. Therefore, they're not filling their rooms, and they're not going to have full restaurant open, nor are they going to have a couple of other things open. The general manager cited because they don't have the employees, and if they're 100% full, they won't be able to keep up with it. So they have, they said about 80% of their employees are not available and are not going to be there. They have openings. So I don't know if that means you're only running at 20% employees now. I don't know, but that's what they told us. So we will be out. If you have friends and family come to the beach, please obey all of the speed signs and the stop signs and the red lights, because we got a ton of troopers. We have a bunch of traffic officers. I've already warned all my family because I know I'm going to be in a meeting in the next 2 weeks where somebody's going to say, hey, so-and-so got tickets, because I've already told the businesses, hey, tell your employees, because we're going to have a ton of law enforcement out here. We'll also be monitoring what's going on in Jacksonville, because there might be a chance we have resources here that we may need to reallocate. We won't know. We won't know until the event. So just let all of you guys and gals know, as far as being prepared, we're 100% prepared.
Any questions?
Anything other than the Orange Crush?
Is there anything else?
I know we got don't forget, we got 4th of July in 2 weeks. Yep. So we just finished our planning for that today. We will hopefully, once we get through this event, we've already got all our officers and our kind of like our game plan set up for how we're going to be patrolling and what we're going to be doing for our shifts. It's going to be very similar to what we've done in years past. This year, Jacksonville they are doing multiple sites like they did last year. We think that's probably going to help some, because I think the closest one to us at the beach is going to be the town center. There's another one, I think, somewhere over in the Arlington area. So will that help us? I'll be honest with you, I don't know. People like to come to the beach. People want to see the fireworks at the beach. So will we see a decrease? Maybe, but will us boots on the ground see it? I'll be honest with you, my opinion is probably not. So we're still preparing. It's 4th of July is our busiest day. So we just put out our plan today for 4th of July.
Are they still doing the art festival this weekend?
They are doing the art festival this weekend. Some things have changed a little bit. I know they did an addendum to the permit just recently. I talked to Mr. McGowan, who is the permit holder. He says he's going to have between 2 and 4 food trucks. They're going to be placed on First Street. First Street will be blocked as it normally is, First and First North, and then just right past the entrance to the 4 Point Sheraton. He's going to have the food trucks on First Street. However, if we need to move the barricades to get emergency vehicles through, we can, because we don't allow them to set tables and chairs up on First Street at any festival. He said he's got about 50 vendors, and they're going to be in the plaza area only. And I think it's pretty much, Jason might know more than me, but that's.
No, I think you covered it, Mark.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's going to be. And the only thing I've told him personally is, I'm a cop, I'm not a food truck guy, but don't show up with one food truck. We've had events with one food truck. People get pissed because they don't have their food, they have nowhere to sit, or they run out of food. And then the food truck people we have to help them get out of there because they don't have any more food. So hopefully he's going to have, I think he said he's going to have between 2 and 4. So, you know, we're again, that's in the permits. We're just going to have to wait and see.
Okay. Questions downtown, Kate? Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
All right, old business.
I have 2 items, if I may.
Sure.
First of all, I'd like to just touch on construction fencing. You had requested that I try to put something together in reference to construction fencing. I've made a first pass at it, which I want to just give everybody for consideration. I met with the building department. I also met with Public Works in reference to construction fencing. There's nothing specifically in the ordinances relating to construction fencing or requirements for it. The way Public Works handles it is that they work with each individual developer and just talk to them and try to get them to accommodate our needs. So what I did is I ended up doing a little bit of research and went to a number of different municipalities throughout the country and actually ended up finding a unique little spreadsheet which considered quite a few municipalities within the state of Florida and what they do in the way of construction fencing. And then I tried to take what I thought were the best attributes from all of them and put it into one document. So it's, you know, I don't know where you want to take this now, but I've made a stab at it, and I'd love to get further feedback. I know Public Works has another, I modified this slightly from the copy that I gave Public Works, but they have a copy, and I was hoping to get some feedback from them on this. But again, my first stab at it.
I assume you've seen what they put in front of the Delano's construction site on A1A?
Go on.
No, Vickers Landing. Vickers Landing.
I'm not sure.
Okay, just before Sawgrass, they have probably a 6-foot-high picket fence that they painted green. They actually constructed a wooden picket fence along A1A. Kind of looks cool. It's got
If you look at New York City, they require all of their fencing to be wood construction. They don't allow any other kind. But just about every other municipality does allow fencing, but it has to have some kind of a screen on the fence. And then some go a little bit further and they allow it to be a scrim. I went to Paris a couple of years ago, and one of the projects in Paris had scaffolding on the outside, but wrapping that scaffolding was a scrim, which was a picture of the ultimate completed project. It was absolutely fantastic. But you know, I'm not going to that extreme. But again, this is just my first pass at it. You requested me to take a stab at it, which I did, and you know, I'd like to get feedback, and hopefully we can take this somewhere to help improve the downtown fencing, because
I assume you've seen, what is it over there, that construction fence blew down for the 4th time? Saturday during the storm.
Well, there are some criteria in here. One of the municipalities in the state of Florida requires that when a hurricane is announced for that location, all screening and fencing need to be taken down and then redone again right after the hurricane has passed. And you'll see that mentioned in the document that I put together.
Well, since we just got this, let's make sure, let's digest this. Taylor, we can put this on the agenda for our next regular scheduled meeting. Make sure that Taylor gets a copy, Heather gets a copy, and Dennis gets a copy.
Yeah.
And the city manager, just so they'll know where we're starting from. And we can pretty much suggest anything we want to the council, so just come up with some ideas of kind of what you want it to look like. I would encourage you between now and then, just Google construction fencing or something along that line, just so you have some ideas. And I would encourage pictures or things along that line, so we can just basically pass a resolution asking them to consider this, and they can go up or down which way they want. Let's give us
And take a drive down Ponte Vedra to see that, because it does look kind of interesting.
It's down Ponte Vedra Drive.
A1A, just before you get to the turn-in for TPC, coming from the north. So it's where they used to have a golf course, and they're made it into a 12-hole golf course, and they're expanding Vickers Landing retirement.
Any other questions before we move on to the next whole business? Okay.
The other item I just wanted to bring up was I want to express my concern about the last meeting we had, joint meeting with City Council. I walked away from that meeting with the feeling that City Council is not in sync with what we're doing and the direction that we're going, that their expectations are quite a bit different, and that if we don't do something in the way of developing a plan for the downtown district or the South Beach district, that the form of this agency is going to change it by the end of the year. I see that happening and was well versed in conversation during that joint meeting, and I think if we're going to maintain the organization the way it is, we've got a lot of work to do between now and the end of the year. We've got to get a plan for downtown. We've got to get a plan for the South Beach district.
I think it's more along the lines of the fact that they don't feel like they know what's going on, which is one of the reasons we have hired that communication. So like this information that we're going over today, they need to have it on their next council meeting so they know where we're at and what we're thinking. I took it more in matters of they didn't know what was going on, so therefore they didn't think we were doing anything. I agree with you. I felt extremely discouraged, would probably be the better word. I also felt somewhat abused. I'll put it that way too. So just simply because of all the work we put in to get the systems running and getting the help. I do think that it's important we have that stuff as well, but I actually am of the mindset now that I just don't think that they're really even considering keeping us regardless. That's how I feel.
I spoke with City Councilwoman Georgette between that meeting and this one, and just to get her sense of what she wanted us to do. Let's get on the same page. What's the vision? And I walked away from that meeting feeling like they need us to come up with ideas and drive them and get them done. And just like this workshop where we're talking about bike racks still, we're not getting things done fast enough, and we need to start making decisions, voting on things, and going after it.
There's only so much we can do and only so much they can do based off our direction. And I agree that it feels like it's been slow, but we're finally on the cusp. We're on the cusp of being able to drive this agency, and I feel like if the consensus of the council is that they just don't understand where that's at. And as a volunteer for this agency, and for the hours we put in to get the organization of this, because this agency wasn't run properly before. And we've been fighting to get it run properly. If I felt abused by some of those comments, I can't imagine how the staff feels. And I know it's recorded. I honestly don't care, but I truly feel like if they're going to be on the same page with us, since they are not all watching what we're doing and putting the 5 to 6 hours a month in to help organize them and help get them on the right track, they need to know what's being said. So I don't know if it's on their council, if they have a nice little spot where it says CRA update, where things are right now. I don't know if they need to have an amendment on their menu of items to go over every day, but that's where I think that a lot of that misunderstanding is going to be resolved, regardless if we have our plans in place and what we're doing forward. I think it's more of a matter of, they have no idea what's happening, and I think that will help them realize that we have been pushing to do these things. It's not just us, it's the staff that have been pushing to make all these changes. So I personally, I mean, for people who say that we barely spend any time on it, when we all here know we spent hours upon hours, and we finally have help, I mean, I agree with you, but at the same time, I'm not of the mindset where I'm just like, either they just don't have anything to do, or they just don't think that we're doing fast enough, but they don't have the information that we're doing all this. But I did feel like no matter what, that they're probably going to remove the agency because they want to be able to have that control.
Well, I believe, I agree with both of you. I left that meeting with a bad taste in my mouth. I actually got a phone call from the mayor a day or two later. She and I met since then. She also had a bad taste in her mouth. You gotta remember the one council person bringing most of this up is the one that probably watches all our meetings. So it's not that she didn't know about what was going on. It's just, well, two things. Number one, I don't think we should ever have another joint meeting virtually. We need to be sitting in the same room.
Agree.
Because it's difficult to carry on a workshop type event when you're doing it virtually. That's number one. Number two, if you looked at our meetings 2 years ago, it looked just like the meeting we just had. I mean, and so it just sounds like this broken record. And one of the things that I said was, we just got Taylor on a month or two ago, and I said, this thing is moving forward. I think the update that we get from her coming up this next meeting, she should also share with the council, should be one of those things. She can be updating us, she can be updating them. So as we start staying on the same page, they'll understand what's going on, number one. Number two, what we knock out today, putting these 3 projects to bed, because we, as David said before, he's been here for 6 months, and every damn time we talk about bike racks.
Mm-hmm.
So we put this to bed, and we can keep moving on for other things. And so it's frustrating, and there's no doubt about it. But as you said, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's just a matter of getting through that tunnel. Yes, David.
Okay, and I tried to make this point at the workshop. I think what we're finding out now with the new staffing and new administration is that we were kind of, I wouldn't say sabotaged, but we were not given what we needed, and we were put on the back burner for whatever reasons. Again, I just happened to notice this again. This we got, what was it, 2 months ago? It's been sitting issued for almost 2 years, and we never saw it. And this is stuff that has been on this outline of stuff that's, action plan items. Where are we? Ready to go, ready to go, ready to go. Well, it's never even been presented to us. So I think, I think we're finding out more and more what was not happening over the last 2 years. And hopefully that's over, and we've got lines of communication and people actually now working on what we need to have worked on. But, again, July, October, September 2019, and it just sat somewhere.
Well, we just got to remember to stop going back. Let's just go forward. David.
One of the things I also spoke with the city councilwoman was, there was a lack of ideas for the south, beach, the South 13, and we've talked about that before. So I went out and took a look and was trying to come up with ideas, because I want to say, all right, if they're looking for ideas, we got to start creating some ideas and start moving them in the process. I think sidewalk improvement is already in the approved plan, I'm pretty sure. And when you look at First Street going south, it's all a cohesive, really nice sidewalk. Second Street doesn't have that. It stops at like the McDonald's there where they did the infrastructure improvements. And you can tell when the nice new sidewalk goes right to the old sidewalk, and it just looks bad. And so what, as part of like an old business, can we go back to that set of ideas of things and say, if we can extend the really nice sidewalk all the way down, then that would also tie in those, cute shops that we talked about the last meeting, and have a nice Disney, the only way we achieve a Disney-esque approach is if we have a consistent approach to our walkways and our pathways and stuff like that, because it's a dramatic shift from, I don't know, is that 3rd Street South to and I thought that could be a really strong thing that we could push that would have a really big effect on the people that live there, the businesses that are there, and all the people that visit there.
David, I appreciate if I ask you that question, could you tell me really what you want the city to be in 5 years?
I could. I could even show you a fake image that I put up together.
Okay. And then the question is, how do we get to that? What are the steps that we need to take to ultimately achieve that goal? And that's what we need to put together, and we don't have that.
Right.
We don't, as an example, my vision of the downtown is that number one, we need more foot traffic downtown.
Mm-hmm.
We need to improve the reputation. How do we go about doing that? Well, one option is to put more housing downtown to create the foot traffic, which in turn, if you create the foot traffic, will create the retail businesses that go along with the additional population that you create. So we need to decide, okay, if it's housing that we want downtown, where do we put the housing? How can we create it so that we can
Just like parking will bring foot traffic. So
Guys,
well, again, this is just my thought. I'm just giving you my perspective on it, and it would take everybody's input, obviously. But the most important point is that we need to get a process put together that will lead us to the ultimate goal that we want to achieve, and we're not there right now. We're either just not.
Guys, let's pause this. We have time after we're done with this, because our parks guys want to go to the Sunshine Park, and we'll let them go, then we can do public works. And I kid you not, we'll be here till 5 o'clock, so we'll circle back around and continue this conversation, because I have some things as well as want to add into. But let's make sure we get these first 2 items done, and then we'll come back to this today. All right. Any other old business?
I do, but we can do it later.
Okay. Sunshine Park update. Come grab a seat. Or if you gotta stand up, whatever you prefer. All right. Trevor, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Here's a brief timeline. I know in the memo that we passed out, there's some dates on each of the projects that we have going on, but really we wanted to update you on all the projects that we have going. But most importantly was Sunshine Park. The playground, you guys will be happy to know that today at 2 o'clock we received 5 bid solicitations. We have an evaluation committee within the next 14 days. We will go through that evaluation process. Depending on how they score right now, our hopes is to get at least 2 vendors. If there's a couple that scores, close, we'll bring 3 back. And at that point, we'll bring in some public input. We'll get input from this board. We'll get input from council. And we'll come up with a final design. Once we have the final design, we'll select that final vendor, put it before council. We're hoping in September, potentially sooner. But everything's going as planned. We're happy with the progress that we're making with the playground. Any questions on the playground?
Are you familiar with a park in Daytona called All Children's Park?
I haven't seen that.
So I went there this past weekend. That's a huge park, and they look like they just redid it. It was originally built in 1989, but it had featured all those brand new like metal and plastic materials that the presentation that you gave us before looked like. But the slides and the material that were in the direct sun would burn my dye. So even though they said, this is not, if it's in the sun, it's too hot. So I just make sure that we have material that's not going to do that.
And all those are definitely items that we will bring up before the selection's made. Ultimately, our goal is also to put a large portion of the play structure under a shade structure.
Okay.
So no, great point. Any other questions on the playground? That's it.
Is there an opportunity when we're raising the whole thing to plant a tree or move a tree into the middle of it so we have awesome shade that we don't require shade structures?
Put a tree in the middle of it. The trees, they create roots. It's kind of like
Sure.
you don't want them on the cart. On a golf course, they bust your cart paths up. They tear up your drainage. Yeah, it's another item we have to get in there and clean. It would be fantastic, but it would just be a maintenance nightmare in my opinion.
Gotcha.
Shade shelters, we do have the purchase order on the shade shelters for the splash pad. We're waiting on the vendor. He should start within the next splash pad for probably, I'm guessing a week to 10 days. We'll put the post up, and once all the concrete's settled, then we'll put the sails on. So that one's going as planned. Basketball and the pickleball courts, we're going to city council for approval next week. Once we have the approval, we already have all the bids we need. So I would say possibly next Tuesday, we'll put in for the PO, and we'll go from there. You know, hopefully we should have that completed by October. It just all, at that point, comes down to the availability of the contractor. He thinks that he can have it done in October if we pull the trigger then. The ADD access, we're ready to pull the trigger on some of the ADD accesses to some of the picnic table areas. The only thing we were hoping to kind of, and let me hand you guys this map, these maps. These are maps. I know there's been a lot of talk about the West End coming into Sunshine Park. We're kind of looking at all possibilities here for a sidewalk coming in. The space as it exists right now is limited. We could possibly come down Horn Street and come in. We could possibly move the fence maybe a couple feet and move some parking spots back. You know, maybe gain a 5-foot sidewalk. Maybe we could come in here, eliminate some of these oak trees. But ultimately, my goal for the sidewalk there, we just started negotiations with the urban trails designer. I would really like to make this part of the urban trails and hand it over. You know, we're in and out of this parking lot 5-6 times a day, every day of the week, and I don't think a 5 or 6 foot sidewalk's really what we're going to be looking for. You know, you come in and you'll have 3 or 4 kids in front of you skateboarding up that driveway, and you'll have strollers coming up. I think this might be something a little bigger that we allow the urban trails planner, designer come in and really design us, you know, whether it's through changing our traffic pattern in and out of the park. Obviously, we're wanting to look at the park and add parking, maybe not necessarily eliminate parking, but kind of what I have in mind is possibly between the blue line and the fire station. You know, there's a pretty big corridor in there. Maybe we lose a couple spots, or we figure out we definitely would lose maybe some of that landscape. But try and come up with something at 8-10 feet, something where that people can ride their skateboards in and out, you know, their bikes, their strollers, and something that really meets the overall vision of what we want for a trail. I hate to just kind of rush and put a 5 or 6 foot sidewalk in there that's really not going to serve the purpose. So ADA, we should see those pads going in pretty soon, because right now you can't. There's no ADA access to get to many of these picnic areas. And as soon as we get this, now if you guys wanted to put a sidewalk through, obviously we could. My recommendation is to allow that to be part of the urban trails, and then really do it right.
So how long are we talking about pushing that out then, if we say it's going to be with the urban trails?
So if it possibly could be 12 months, it could be 18 months, it could be something that, you know, right now we're in negotiations with. That might be one of the areas that we start first. You know, that might be the area that the funds are available. We prioritize it high, and it's one of the areas that we could touch first. So.
Can I ask a question in regards to the red line that's on here? You mentioned possibly changing the flow of traffic to accommodate the inward pathway. Just looking at this and not assuming the rest of the park, is there a certain kind of requirements we need to make sure that if we do increase traffic along this residential road, Orange Street, is there any kind of stuff we need to consider? So hypothetically, you change the pattern where people come into the park through Orange Street and out by the fire department, so that we could just have like almost like 2 one-ways. Is there some things that we have to get approval through or consider for the residents?
And we haven't run those by planning or SALT, if we're even allowed to come in. That red line there was really a sidewalk. I know we could put a nice big sidewalk coming in down Orange Street. Now, if we wanted to change, and that's where cars come in, I think that's a fantastic idea. And then we allow this entire corridor to be, well, you can still lose some of the parking.
You would have to.
I think you
But
guys
that-
are pretty irate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
they would-
thinking the
they
neighbors
would.
there probably wouldn't be very happy about it.
But that's something where when you bring the urban trail firm that we've selected and negotiating with, that's what they do. They're experts in this. They would do the traffic pattern. You know, they probably got several people that could look at here and could put it on there pretty quick and be something we'd all be proud of.
Well, I'll just say for me personally, I like the idea of the urban trails and making a nice bigger one. However, I also think that regardless if we do that or not, we need to address this specific corridor.
Yeah,
To have
for sure.
some kind of parties, those cars that park there, they're walking in the way and there's no place
Yeah,
for them to
there
go.
is.
So either we put it on the left or right of this picture, but even if it's just what's the smallest you can go, 3 foot, a small little something somewhere, we're gonna have to consider that somehow around it, if we keep those parking spots there, regardless if we find a bigger corridor. I just feel like that's more of a safety issue than it is necessarily a function.
Right.
I mean, like
Do we have any utilization stats on how many people park here? And obviously on this picture, there's nobody using it.
I mean, in this picture, I don't know what time of year this picture was, but, you know, since COVID, the community center hadn't been used quite as much as it was. Once the community center gets back up and running, there's times where this entire area is completely full. You know, I would hate to, I mean, you can lose a few parking spaces, but there are times where it is packed from one end all the way to the other. But we do agree and acknowledge that there needs to be something. I would just hate to put a 4-foot piece of concrete down and they're just not going to use it. You know, if you really think about it, I mean, this is what, 3 foot, 4 foot. You know, people. When you see the skateboarders in and out, you see the people on their bikes in and out.
But it's
They're not gonna be-
it's not the skateboarders, it's
The strollers.
the strollers and things
Right.
like that that really need a space where they can walk. And, you know, I agree with Francis. I mean, I'd hate to put this off for 18 months, you know, 12 months to 18 months. I'd like to see something done very quickly.
Did we already employ these people to do the trails?
We're doing the negotiations right now. They've already been selected. We're going through the negotiations and we have them on the July council meeting to be.
The July council is just for council to approve our selection and our process in case we aren't able to come to an agreement with with the scope and the fees. Then we would move to the next one. But we're hoping for the next council meeting, which is in the middle or the last third of July, I think July 19th, we would bring it to council to approve the contract scope and fee.
But what's the possibility of them just focusing on this first? I mean, if they come on board in July or August, there's no reason why
Yeah,
they can't have a design for this before the end of the year.
And that's what I was meaning a minute ago, like the funds are there and we could just prioritize that and say, draw this up or draw this portion of it and let's move forward with it.
I mean, because I agree with you on this blue line. I mean, there's really no reason that we have to leave those trees. It doesn't have to be a dead straight sidewalk. I mean, you know, you've got a 6-foot path coming through. It can meander a little bit as it makes its way in there. I mean, so I don't see a problem waiting for that trail thing, for those trail guys to get on board, just as long as it becomes one of their priorities.
Right,
Because I
absolutely.
agree with these two. Pushing up 18 months is not going to be where we want to be.
Right.
And then you can use the pathway up in Neptune Beach along Jarbo Park, from 3rd Street all the way to Bend. And it just meanders nicely through the trees and things to that extent. I see no reason why we can't do that.
So this is the water plant.
This little shed looking.
So that right there is and Dennis could speak on it, but it's a diesel, I believe it's a diesel tank to power the generators. I could be wrong, but that's what I believe it to be.
Because you look at this and you think, well, you could move that fence and move the generator and then that would be the temporary.
They're going to say.
They're gonna say, stay out of our area.
Talk to our regulators. You dance on your side of the fence, we'll dance on ours.
Yes, exactly. I think it could be done right. I think we can do it. We'll touch base with, as we're negotiating, you know, scope and fee, and then see if we can put a rush on that, get that on their eyes, and then see how quickly we can move forward with that. You know, if you put it up here, you know, we'd have to slide these spots back. You're gonna lose the trees anyway. 5 foot up against a vertical fence, that's not a lot. And that really kind of takes 2 feet away from it to begin with. And then you come through here on this red line. The red line would probably, if we were gonna do a straight path, we would lose all the trees, the landscape. We'd lose the 2 parallel spots. And then when you get down here at the end, there is a 10-inch backflow or 8-inch backflow that would need to be moved. There's an electrical transformer or something on that corner that would potentially need to be moved. And then there is a gas line that runs through here. So there are some utilities to work. There's a couple storm drains right where you come into the fire station parking lot. Could be done. We would just have to get some more prices and speak with Public Works and Beaches Energy on moving some of those utilities if possible.
And this study would include flow of traffic. So if we do hypothetically not go across the fence and hypothetically not touch those trees and turn that road into a one-way that has parking, we need a way that you could get into, which therefore the only other place if we didn't use one street is the current location, which then means we would have to get rid of the median in the middle to do a turn lane for people who are going northbound, and then like there's like
Those
a
are
whole
all
bunch.
things
Are
that
they
we
going to
have
be
to-
looking at that kind of stuff
Yes.
as well? Because
Yes.
I'm fine with that as an option where you go in one spot and you leave in another,
Right.
as long as we have signing as part of our process.
Right.
We're really reviewing how many people. I don't know how you would monitor it, how you see how many people are coming north
It would
to
be-
get in there.
And that's one of the keys in our urban trails is signage. You know, it's directing people, trying to get people in and around the beach and visible signs.
Looks like there's about 26 parking spots along the yellow line. What about if we converted those to parking, like, let's say, parallel parking spots that are vertical rather than slanted? Which would probably reduce the spots by like 8, but would give you a lot more space to build a nicer trail coming down on the yellow line. Is that a
Yeah, those are
consideration?
definitely things that we'll look into.
Okay.
We'll have to get a little help with, the parking experts, how many feet.
Parking's a premium out there, especially on the private weekend.
And
I think last one, we
Yeah.
start looking at getting a parking.
Yeah, and you've already asked us to add parking to the south end, so I'd hate to lose parking. But, no, absolutely, we're up for looking at everything.
I've never had a problem parking there.
There's been some weekends where cars have parked all over on grass areas and things like that because they have flag football and things like that.
Right.
Participate there and you can't find a parking spot.
The lighting post, we do have, Vanguard Electric is our city's contractor for electrical. We do have purchase orders for the installation and the post, and we'll see the lighting moving forward here shortly. The volleyball, we will be, I wish this picture just cut it out. We will be, if you looked at the volleyball now, there's these huge humps where the sand is just blown out. So we're going to completely level it from football field to sidewalk. We're going to re-irrigate that entire corner, reestablish all the lines, resod it, and that will be done in the month of July. We already have all the bids. I just need to put it in tomorrow, and we'll have the purchase order pretty quick on that. PIP, we have the safety zones around some of the exercise equipment that doesn't have it. We do have the purchase order on that. Now we're just at the contractor has it on their list, and as soon as the product and their labor is available, they'll be installing those around the exercise stations. Park benches, 16 of them are in. We put several of them together. I believe we placed 4 of them today in the splash pad area. There's 4 benches inside the gate there, and we'll continue to place 16 benches throughout and around the park.
And we talked a little bit about actually having people being able to sponsor a bench, put their name on the bench.
And the bench sponsoring was the one where there was one that the CRA paid for it. We couldn't receive the funding for it, and so we'd have to get creative with that. There was some sort of issue with receiving funds for something that the CRA.
No, but we were talking about, and I guess we don't need to get into this now, but someone gets $500 for a bench, and that $500 gets donated to American Cancer Society. So it's a third party, they're basically running it all. We're paying for the bench, we're putting the bench in, it's just that they get the $500, they get their name on it, and in memory of grandma, and it goes over here.
Okay, well, we'll look into that and see if we can't think outside the box and see if we can't figure something out that's outside of our normal tree and bench program.
Because I know we can't do the city, we can't be
Right.
part of that program.
Right.
But it doesn't mean, to me, it just seems like a missed opportunity. Because
Okay.
people like to, memorialize a bench or a plaque or something along that line. I mean, I don't wanna hold anything up, but if we get benches, let's get benches where you can actually take that top rail off and get it in, engraved and put it back on.
So the benches we have now, that's exactly, if you go to Huguenot Park and by the playground, there's one where the top rail was taken off, it was engraved, and then there's like a brass plaque that sits down in it flush. That's one of the samples that we have. So we'll continue to dig and investigate, see if we can come up with something that's outside of our normal.
I mean, don't slow down what you're doing.
No, we won't.
Let's just make sure we get benches that can.
They're going in, and even if they're in, someone could possibly still adopt one that's already in. We'll get that put on. Shower towers, those are coming in. We have 3 shower towers coming, 2 drinking fountains. We already have the purchase order. Those are in the works. Those will be done this summer.
I have a question on that.
Okay.
I forgot my notes, but I do remember that one. I don't remember us talking about what those fountains look like or what they're going to be like. Can you tell me what they are? Are they like the traditional, everyone slurps on fountain of water?
Do you happen to have a picture of what the fountains are that we had ordered?
No, I don't, but we can get that to you, Mr. Pawlowski, but I think the answer to your question, they're stainless steel. We upgrading them to all one manufacturer that we can readily get the parts for, because that's one of the drawbacks that we have with the current.
Right, and it's attached to the building that's there, right? So you're talking about the amenity building?
No,
No.
the shower tower is freestanding, it's near the volleyball court, and then there's 2, one each in each of the splash pads.
Okay, so the splash pads is where I was thinking forever. The reason I'm asking is they're attached to a building for their water purposes. I know that if, this was just one of the things I was thinking about, and it may be more expensive, and I personally would be in favor of spending more money to do this for those, and it may not be right this minute, but in the near future. Everybody, especially since the city is now saying sustainable, has their own hydro flask or their own whatever. They now make fountains where you just put your bottle underneath them and you fill it up. I think for that area, with all the sports, with all the people who are there, and the fact that we are supposed to be sustainable and green now, that would reflect the ideal of what the city is trying to do. And if we could somehow incorporate those.
We'll look and see if we can add the water fill station to
Yeah,
it.
but it's just something to think about, because if we're already attaching to our water and we're already
Right.
providing water, why not be the next new age thing, which is not even new anymore, it's been around for 5 years
Right.
or more. If we include that, it would solidify that we hear the council and their new vision for the city. That's just something I'd like to throw out there.
Okay, we'll definitely look into that and see if we can retrofit or add where it's basically the water comes from the top of the
Right.
bottle.
Mhm.
Just on to that, but.
Yeah,
Rubbish, no,
that'd be
rubbish
both.
kids are gonna have their own little water bottle.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, it's gotta do both.
Medians, so the medians kind of goes in line with what I also wanted to update you on. I get the downtown landscape, and a lot of our landscape has looked really bad lately. The biggest reason was we didn't lose, we put our contract out for bid. One contractor pulled out, and we were about six weeks with no contractor. So basically, some of these areas went about 6 weeks with just our park staff maintaining citywide. We were thin on labor, everything really just got minimal maintenance. We do have everyone under contract now. They just started last week. So you should see a massive improvement going forward with a lot of our beds. They even went around to a lot of these islands. I don't know if you would have noticed this past week, pulled all the tall weeds. But we do have a plan, we're moving forward. Also, a lot of these beds, only half the plant material is alive in it, and that's because the irrigation system's completely destroyed. We have rebuilt a majority of 6, we've rebuilt the majority of 5th, and it comes to a point where our one guy in the house, it's like, all right, it's enough, we'll be here for a year trying to get all this done. So we are gonna solicit our contractor to come in and hire them to restore the irrigation. Once the irrigation is restored, we're gonna look into re-landscaping and maybe not re-landscaping, re-changing the design, but at least bringing that beach feel back to what it was when it was originally put in and intended to be. I even noticed, like, I sent the contractor specifically down to 4th Avenue South last week, and they got tired of looking at it, so they pulled everything out on their own. Like, he showed up to do it on Tuesday, and Monday, I guess they had somebody to pull it out. So we are on top of all the landscape.
We're gonna have
You will.
uniform mulch.
So that's the other thing. I haven't asked them to mulch yet. It is in the contract to mulch twice a year. I know all of you do not like the red mulch. I do not like the red mulch. I'd like to go and maybe do a couple areas, you know. I don't know if you guys have been through the Ponte Vedra Ranch Club lately since they rebuilt the golf course, but you'll see they'll have a lot of, it's just called concrete screens. It looks white, it kind of looks beached, it kind of looks like a coquina look. Use something like that for mulch. The water doesn't move it, and it's something that the water will drain through it. It's not going to wash out, it'll stay in the beds, but I wouldn't mind getting, you know, a truck in and let's just do a couple beds. Let's look at it, and then if everyone likes it, we'll go, and it's something that we can maybe freshen up once a year when the leaves drop in. You just take your blower, you blow the stuff off the top, and just something that's easier to maintain. The red mulch not only does it look ugly, the rains that we would have had this week, we would have shoveled that stuff out of the street 3 days in a row. We'd have shoveled it up, the next day it washed down, we'd have shoveled it up yesterday, but it washed out again.
I don't think we care, and I can speak for myself, I don't think we care one way or the other about red or black or what it's gonna be.
We just
Let's
want
be
to-
consistent.
Right.
No, I mean, because, and it's funny, I can show you the pictures. There's places out there where it's red and right next to it's black, right next to it's rocks. And let's just be consistent.
Right, and I think some of that on First Street was where they were doing a sample. They did the pour in place, and they said, here's one pour in place, here's one pour in place, and here's some rock, and pick, and we'll do them all, and then it never got picked, and they never all got done. So absolutely, we'll come up with a plan. We'll get, you know, first is let's get the irrigation, let's get the landscape, and then we'll come in with our mulch, and that'll be a huge help, keep the leaves down, or giving it good
It's a
consistency.
good thing you brought that up, because I was gonna bring it up on the whole business, because I talked to Carol about this just the other day.
Right.
That I was gonna make a big deal about this mulch, because
No.
this
We're
has been,
definitely-
just
we're
like David
definitely
said
on-
about bike rides, this has been one of those things that somebody mentioned a year and a half ago, and none of anything to do.
Right, well, it's getting done now. We're definitely, our contractor's in, and we're gonna move forward with it. We'll get something here pretty soon.
Okay, if you do, if the idea of the Ponte Vedra white concrete like stuff
Yeah,
goes in,
concrete screens.
do you need irrigation in that planter?
You'll still need, now the planters that are just the palm tree and that, no. But the irrigation, or the planters that are down, Sixth Street, and
Sure.
Fifth Street, and all those, you know, absolutely, you'll still need to water the plant material
Right.
that's in there.
But
Um,
the ones, the palms.
The ones that are just a palm, we'll probably just leave the bubbler for the palm, and just let it be.
So any idea, you're talking about irrigation, any idea before we can get that, how long will it be for us to get that done?
I'm hoping we can get started on it this month and just get it done. It's definitely been a pain in my side. We've been down here, you know, it's really been a search and destroy mission to, you know, myself and the irrigation tech, and there's really no good as-bills. You know, we're kind of looking around, we're finding all the valves and finding all the controllers. We're about 90% at least located everything.
Okay.
And now we need to just repair what's in the ground. And I think now that we've done the hard part, we found everything, now it's just you turn it on, you fix what's broke, and you go to the next one. We should be good, we should be ready to move forward on that.
Okay.
So that, okay.
Quick question, is all the locations of everything found documented so that we don't fall into
So
that?
they will be, yes, we've made a map and we've located all of them, yeah, absolutely. We're not losing them, and if for some reason I get hit by a bus tomorrow, there's gonna be a map where whoever
Well, not even-
knows where they're at.
Not even just that though, with historically, if we have a baseline and we continue to find year after year that we're having an area that's dying, we can decide, you know, how many times have we documented this specific area is having an issue, therefore let's change the whole vegetation inside it so that it doesn't need it. I mean, I think it's good to have a baseline.
Right. And I'm even, once we get the irrigation up and running, I'm gonna come back and we're gonna ask for an irrigation control. Right now, all these streets have basically what's called a battery valve. There's basically a little hockey puck. There's no clock. It's not like you can go in your garage, turn a clock, and turn all the irrigation off. Buried in each and every one of these boxes is a clock with a little timer that takes a 9-volt battery. And, yes, unreal. So I've been reaching out, and there's a service that we can have, and we can make these where you can actually send a cellular signal down to all these boxes, and we can have one central location where it rained today, I can turn them all off. You know, I can't go to 52 boxes and shut off all these clocks when it rains. So it gives us better control of water, it helps us save some money, and yeah. So those are things that will be coming back. See? But
So archaic.
but getting the contractor, that brings me back to the medians on Jacksonville Drive and South Beach Parkway. Now that we have our contractors in place, that'll be easy where I could just call on my contractors and we can get that planted since they're already under contract. And like I said, I really plan on going with something similar, something that looks similar to that, the grassy plants that are in there. That's, what's it called? I believe it's called Fakahatchee grass. And what I don't like about that is it just, one, it grows really tall.
You just make that up.
No, it's actually, it grows really tall. And so there are some people, even though it's approved by DOT sightlines, everything meets standards. We still get a lot of people coming out of the communities that I can't see, the plants are too tall, so we're constantly trimming them. But they stay in one plant, and it gives room for weeds. So I want to plant something that grows about half the height, looks similar, but will fill the entire plant to where we're not fighting weeds, and will save us money on herbicides and labor. So that's where we're at. My goal is to have those replanted this fiscal year, and we'll add some Asiatic jasmine to the areas. We'll trim some of the palms up that are in there. We'll trim all those oak trees up and get it where it's maintained with our
Further,
respect.
exactly right. You know, coming out of Ocean Cave, a couple of years back, I had significant complaints from the residents because they couldn't see coming out of the community. As much as I talked to the police chief about it, he's, you know, and he said that they approved those plants in their DOT. You got to remember, some of those people are older. They sit low in their cars.
And I think one of the issues is that neighborhood comes out, sits like a drainage basin, so it sits at the low point. And then as you're coming up, these are high, so when you measure these, yeah, they're low enough, but then when you take in the elevation, you can't see. You know, I agree with the complaints.
And I just want you to know that I've been getting comments and call them complaints about the appearance of the medians and things like that. So the sooner we can get in there and do something.
So the weeds and the medians that we've gotten a lot of complaints on over the last month was a direct result of losing our contractors and all of our staff having to maintain everything in the city. So.
No, and I appreciate what you've done, and this is now, not this schedule, but the other one that you sent out earlier is public information, and people have glommed onto that. We're now going to be held accountable, all of us are going to be held accountable. We need to get this stuff done the way we say we're going to get it done, and no ifs, ands, or buts, because the public is now aware of it.
All these projects are getting pushed as quick as we can. The only holdup could be, as you guys know, if you try to purchase anything, you go to the paint store, there's no paint in it. You know, it's like with COVID, manufacturing's down, so if there's any holdups, it would be directly related to manufacturing and the shortages.
I think the thing that we need to do, if that's the case, then we need to communicate back out again to the public that you know, we're working on it, but because of problems in purchasing materials, you know, instead of October, it's going to be November.
Right.
Just so that they understand that you know, we're keeping an eye on what's going on.
Right.
The other thing I just wanted to comment on real quick was, is there anything in the way of actual park landscaping being done? Because there's a lot of dead bushes, plants within the park itself, and I just haven't heard any conversation about that.
So I believe we mentioned it at one of them. One of the workshops. What I'd really like to do is when the playground's completely destroyed and down and they're rebuilding it, at that point I'd like to come in because the irrigation system on the entire south end of South Beach Park
It's gone.
it got capped when they put in the skate park and when they put in the artificial field. So what I'd like to re-irrigate the entire south end and at that time re-landscape.
And then also, the other is the skate park itself is the maintenance of that skate park, because it's taken a little bit of a beating.
It is.
The edges and some of the retaining walls and so forth that are starting to come apart. We need to get in there and make
Yes,
sure.
sir. I know we have our city contractor. He's working on fixing. There's some of the coping at the end of the walls that are where they stand. They've kind of fallen off. We're going to put that back on. There's a width, I don't know, a foot wide between the actual skating area and that outer bulkhead, that right now it's just weeds. I guess it was originally some landscape, but from everyone crashing their skateboards in and out. So we're gonna concrete that area, or come up with a permanent surface. And also we are bidding out the, is that right? We're bidding out the maintenance of the whole thing right now, right?
No, we're not bidding. What we are looking to do is go to council to ask them to approve Team Payne as our sole source to maintain the park.
The skate park itself.
The skate park, because the edges of the ramp, we call them the ramps, the bowls and things like that,
The
have
coping.
deteriorated, and they're
Yes.
missing, I don't know if it's tile that's right at the top of it, the top edge, but it just needs some maintenance is what it needs. So,
We've looked at all those and we're addressing, we're actively moving forward on repairing where all the coping's falling off. We're looking at getting it repainted. Some of those metal shade structures around the skate park, we're looking at repainting those.
well,
Absolutely.
first of all, thank you. This is great, and having a game plan and understanding where things are going, and we can track this. I would love to see this thing, love to see the same schedule from Public Works. This is gonna, where are we with all of our projects? What are we doing? Are we staying on track with, what we need to do and so forth? So, I would very much like to see a similar kind of thing with Public Works. Thank you.
Any other questions of Trevor? Comments?
The only comment I have is I hope that maybe Taylor can share this time chart with city council on the meeting coming up, so they know that these items have a plan and they're going to be addressed.
Thank you,
If you don't mind.
Okay, bike racks, bollards, trash cans, and blah, blah, blah. Is that gonna be Heather, Dennis?
Well,
Hang tight. Come
Yeah,
on.
it's all right. We'd like to give Cody the opportunity to give some history on the process, and then we're gonna give you guys some stickers.
Yay.
Yay!
Oh, we got them all.
And we have green or hats and sunglasses.
Okay, Cody, are you?
No fancy presentation. So we do have the options pinned up on the board. I know there was a request last time, I think we go deep into the bike racks and history and all of that, but everybody said specifically, it'd be nice to know the history of why we chose this trash receptacle, the bench, so I wanted to just give a really brief update on that. And really what I did in order to do that is pull the document, a couple of pages out of the document. I had to go back and refresh myself on my paper we did. So originally it's studied just really the location of the different site furnishings. One thing that's to note is like there was no seating in downtown at all. Every bit of seating was removed. The only bit of seating that was there was like somebody sitting on top of an old mast arm pole base. So that was we did an analysis of the situation. Included in that analysis was what we saw that was out there to date. So there's an existing bollard that was a part of the new streets improvements. There's the historic bollards that are in Lake Plaza right out here in front. So it should be said that I think those bollards are still an option. When we saw those as still an option at that point. When we went to source this one, it was no longer available, no longer being carried, which is why we what led us to it's actually just an updated version of that same bollard. There's not a lot of bollards in downtown, and we don't see, trying to increase the usage of them. I think we're always going to have some in Lake Plaza, a couple of places along First Street, but really trying to move away from having to use a lot of those in areas. Trash, we've got the trash receptacle that you've supported, and then there was an existing trash receptacle along First Street. Jogging my memory, I think these were actually located more prominently along First Street at some point. And the reason why this one was put into place was the businesses were putting their trash into these larger receptacles, and that was a major issue at the time. They moved to this one. This is a pretty low grade quality trash receptacle, and it was tough to maintain, but everybody really liked it and liked the hood on top of it and the small aperture to keep the businesses from throwing trash away, which is ultimately what led us to the one that we selected, which is, so this is the bollard selection here. So we said there's two options that are out on site based on moving forward in the city, this is what we suggested at that time. So this is an option, and then you'll see there's additional options up there that we talked about today. So that's how what led us to the bollard. And going back through all the imagery, I found a lot of the old bollards that we looked at back a couple of years ago. They're all on the table, so I pulled those out of the archives. So a lot of these options that you're seeing there were some that were evaluated a couple of years ago. There's just a couple of options under site furnishings, under the trash receptacle, and probably even under the bollard that they've been released in the past year. So I went ahead and included some new options for discussion. So what led us a couple of years ago to this particular trash receptacle was the fact that everyone really liked the functionality of this. They were just concerned about the quality of it. So we moved to a better quality trash receptacle from a really great firm in the US. And then also selected the wood so that it ties to the wood wrap trash receptacles that are used throughout the city. So we thought that was a nice combination. At some point throughout the process between this point and the next step, there was some concern about maintenance of the wood, maintenance of the metal on the top, which it's of a nice quality, so yeah, everything has maintenance challenges over time, but the desire was to go to something that's completely bulletproof as possible, which I've got the plans open up here to the left. That's where we moved that concrete waste receptacle. There was some concern the last time about it having an open top and collecting debris and things at the top. So there's concerns on both sides, but the reason why we went to that was just trying to get something bulletproof, concrete, being by the ocean. That works really well. From a seating standpoint, similar level of analysis. As I said, there's really no seating in downtown. So early on in the public workshops, we showed a couple of different options. And going back to the original RFP, I said specifically seating pods because there's concern of the length of stay on a bench, so a back bench, and then also being able to lay down on the bench itself. So you'll see the options up here. That's why they're all in that family of being 2 feet by 2 feet, 3 feet by 3 feet. We did study some options of, if we keep them a tight enough radius and wrap them around the planter, yeah, they become long, but they're not comfortable to lay on and rest on for long periods of time, which led us at the end of the design phase to these options. So this is an off-the-shelf option. We in-house call it a sharp tooth. That's the one it's maintained in the plans, and it is concrete as well, so very durable, long-lasting, low-level maintenance. And then to complement that throughout downtown in some select locations, a couple of them being around the big date palms out here in front of Lake Plaza, are these raised seating options which kind of mimic this one, which was shared a little bit early on workshops. So these are in the construction documents as well. And those would be out of a white cast-in-place concrete, and then they would actually have a wood top as well for the warmth and the softness and the touchy-feely kind of vibe. We talked about it at the last workshop as well, which is the terrace seating out along the boardwalk in Latham. Brought full-size plans of everything we have. We can look at that as well if there's any. There was some concern around the overall height of that and microns being behind it. Looking back, the reason why that was put into the plans, the site furnishing plans specifically, that was a part of the Latham Plaza master plan, which wasn't moved forward with the second phase of work. There was concern around installing the bike racks and the sidewalks in that area of Latham Plaza, and then coming back and trying to construct that terraced tiered wall, which is a part of the long-term vision of Latham, and tearing all of that back up. So let's just go ahead and build that little node for now, so that we don't have to come back and visit that in the future and cause any more work. So that's what led us to some of the decisions. I think any and all options are still on the table. The drawings are open, and then we've got some options on the far left that are for bollards. And you'll see there's some off-the-shelf options. The bottom left is a precast ball structure. Probably all seen it like at a Target, maybe the red ones. But it's of a natural material, very durable. And then the one just above that is the idea of using a naturalized stone, which is actually something that we included in the pier design based on some early on feedback of just using large boulders rather than having bollards everywhere.
question about those specifically. Are they, because we're talking about possibly replacing and making everything consistent across the beach. And there's not that many places, I guess, but mostly the Real Plaza and also the street ends. Would those two you just mentioned also be considered seating options as well, or are those areas where we wouldn't want to encourage seating?
And that's why you would use those, because they serve two purposes, and they're kind of pod seating in and of themselves. A piece of stone you can rest on, you can sit on, not for a very long time, but you can definitely use that. And the same thing for the spheres. So I think that's a great point.
Then my last question in regards to those specifically, some of them in the past have had lighting in them to help with the lighting. So in the future vision or future planning, construction planning, you guys, was it required or was the lighting plan, did it require that these bollards have lighting as well, or could they just be completely not part of the lighting issue? Like some of them had lights on them, right?
And lights are always a little bit challenging with bollards because it's whether or not they're required to be vehicular rated. Sometimes it's really hard to get a light, and those are really limited on selection. But then also just the longevity of them and the effect of them at the end of the day. So
Okay.
I think lighting is nice, but not required by
Okay.
any
I
means.
didn't know if it was required in the lighting platform that you guys had done. Okay, that's cool.
Because we typically don't use bollards for lights because you have to place them about 10, 15, 20 feet on center. And they're just as expensive as a pole mounted light. So they're really inefficient.
Cody, one of my observations was, I don't know about all of them, but several of the bollards that were called out to be lighted in the current site plan were the ones in a few different, not every one, but several of them in Latham Plaza. So I didn't know if that came from some of the Latham Plaza master plan also.
Yeah.
It does, and there's always been a desire for additional lighting, pathway lighting, overhead lighting. So as part of the Latham Plaza master plan, lighting is really important. So as we come in and put, I'll say that Latham Plaza is a great opportunity for a catalyst opportunity for downtown. The park itself, that was shelved a couple of years ago, the design and implementation of that. So the couple of things that show up in the site furnishing, terrace walls, the wraps around the palms, and then replacement of things like that. It's just trying to project a little bit into the future that's, that speaks to that master plan.
So that's why I asked the same question, because I remembered something about the safety and having those lighted areas. So basically, but from what I'm understanding now though, is that it's not required for the safety and lighting platform. We could use other ways of supplementing it. I just wanted to make sure, because I personally don't want lights in them. But I didn't know if you guys like were requiring, or the city's requirement of it. Okay.
Are they requiring for power in general in the bollards? Because I know, especially out in Latham Plaza, people are always looking for, especially when you have a bunch of vendors and stuff out there, people are always looking for power.
So in the master plan, typically how we provide that type of power is in the light bulb itself.
Okay.
Because there's not any power going to that, and there's usually a little handle receptacle at the base of it. If there's other desires, we've embedded them in like the precast seat walls and in gray. There's a lot
So
of
there was no intention to ever have power in the bollards?
Okay.
and it limits it so much. All of these have, I actually chose, outside of the concrete ones, all the others show an option of lighting. I wanted to make sure that you could get with it without lighting. Flexibility. So then trash, actually the top left is the original one we chose. Maintained, all the options have the hood over top of them, both for rain protection, but also for amount of debris you can fit into.
Can I ask you a question on that? You know, our choices are being dictated by a practice of certain businesses. I've been really pleased on how the delivery truck ordinance worked. You know, we put that ordinance in, and now we don't have delivery trucks in First and Second Street. Every business, tavern, or whatever has to have dumpster where they're supposed to take the trash. The problem they were having is that the guys late at night would get lazy and take their trash and dump it in the receptacles, which they shouldn't be doing. And so that's dictating what we can do because they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing. So could we explore an ordinance that the businesses cannot use street trash receptacles to dump their trash? We've got cameras all over the place. If it's observed that it's a problem, we can figure out who did it. and, you know, have the businesses control their employees. I just, you know, if we think that one option is so much better, but we can't do that because the businesses are not doing what they're supposed to do, I don't think that's right.
I do think there's another reason to the custom-built wraps work along the boardwalk, work when you have the square footage. Along streetscapes, First Street is pretty tight, it gets really tight in areas, so another reason to choose another option. I think it still has to, you still can use the wrap where you want to use it. But to choose this is all about the footprint as well. To be thinking about if you want trash receptacles at the end of each block and one in the mid-block, it can get very challenging trying to cite something that is 3 feet. So that's another reason to consider.
What we'll probably run into with these same with the lids, because there's always gonna be somebody that came off the beach that's got a grocery bag full of trash, and they're gonna pull the lid off, they're gonna stick it in there, and put the lid down on the side, and you're gonna have a lot of these things with the lid sitting on the side of the
So
trash.
all those lids, you cannot just pull the lid off. The hood itself is part of the structure. So it's, in that case, they're gonna squeeze.
How does maintenance sound to you?
They all have hatches, different mechanisms, different ways to access it. They're usually keyed. And they're all, you know, the ones we've chosen, they're all as durable as they come. You know, they're not concrete, but they're durable.
I don't see my option up there. The one that's done by Public Works, you know, they,
So that's an existing option one that is, I think that one's being carried forward. I think that the goal of this is to choose that alternative fixture. Because even in the pier, we actually have those, the Public Works, the wraps.
well, I guess my question is, because I'm sure when you're done bringing us up to the current point, you're gonna have all 5 of us stand up there and put little stars on the ones we like, and the ones that have the most stars, are the ones that move forward. If I don't see my option there, I can't put 5 stars on it.
I guess my assumption was that one's moving forward no matter what. That one's not even being voted on because it's in plans, it's moving forward. We're using that one in plans already. So we've got that one and then another alternative, which would be this one that you use.
And they need to be able to work well together. And you're saying it's because you would only use the smaller one in areas that it's hard to have a big bulky one? Or if you want a 3-in-1 street versus 2.
Yeah, if you got like a 10-foot wide sidewalk with columns coming down halfway through that, we can pretty strategically place one of those up and fit it.
And you're saying we'd rather have it all across the whole area?
But
We could put a square next to it and say old square.
I've lived those things for years. I've seen them work so successfully, and it doesn't matter if it pour down rain, because each one of those little plastic sleeves that go in there all have holes in them, so they don't drain. And it's just so easy for one guy to go buy in this golf cart, dump it, put it back, and just keep going. And when some little kid comes along and for some reason kicks one of those little 1x4s out, it's replaced just like that, because, you know, they do it right there in the house. But anyway, I'm biased.
You could put a square there for you.
So just really, we saw the bike racks last time, those are the same. And then second to last far right is the seating pod options. So those are all different options for that. The far right is the artful bike racks. Those are all collected by Dennis, and those are also up for vote as well. Okay. So
I guess what's gonna happen is as we go up there, Heather, you gonna walk us through what we're gonna do, or?
Yeah, so I've got sets of green dots for you guys. So the set of 5 is for the non-standard bike racks. And then I'll give you a set of 3 for everything else.
I do have a question.
Sorry, I don't have purple.
Is
So the
that
far right-
standard being the?
Yeah, the last sheet.
Yeah, so the far right one, I mean, I'm not 100% on board that I want precasted art bike racks. I did want this as an option, but can we have an option on there that we're not going with these specifics? We were talking about different areas, possibly being different themes, and possibly having artists with some parameters as an option too. Like for that one, can we have a bigger discussion about that one on the far right?
Yeah, I think one of the things you guys had talked about was coming up with some selections, and then if you decided to move forward with an artist doing a bike rack in one of these locations, that one of these could be relocated and replaced somewhere else in the city.
Or use that
and
as
then
a theme per
and
se?
then the art the one developed by the artist would go in its place.
How many artistic bike racks do we have set aside now? Was it six, eight,
I think we had 6.
10? I can't remember.
Well, I think it was.
We actually had 6 locations,
Yeah.
not 6 bike racks. One of the 6 was including City Hall, which we had tossed around the idea of still sticking with the Jack's Beach branded arc rack and the standard arc racks in this location because of it being the building of official government business as opposed to having a artistic theme. So our wish would be to you tell us if you want to name 6 individual areas, or do you want to just say 5 individual areas? Some of those, like I said, included the entire distance from first all the way to the beach on the back side of Lake Plaza. So there's 32 bike racks in that area. Some of these are artistic areas around, the bar over here where you've got 32 or 36 more bike racks. So keep in mind, you're kind of picking 5 areas, not 5 individual bike racks.
That's a great point. This was the map that we looked at the last time. The 2 yellows are additions, and then we did talk about taking the one out here in front of City Hall away. So it's a good question and a really good point. Then when you look at these options, even imagine it 20 in a row. That's a part of that artistic movement as well.
Before I vote on these, and I don't know the answer to this, do we have flamingos in Jacksonville?
No, we have pink spoonbills is the next closest thing.
Okay.
At the zoo, they have pink flamingos.
Yeah, there's not a lot of options in terms of the animals out there.
Maybe
But I think that's another, if it's inspired,
Yeah.
to inspire the artist, that we love birds,
Gotcha.
then maybe that inspires it in the future.
Well, let's,
Just on, while we're talking about the choices up there, what I recall in the last meeting when presented with that Jack's logo, we ended up liking it. But we liked it better in the keyhole bike rack than we did in the oval coming out of the ground. Is that right?
I don't remember making that determination. I remember we said that you can put it in both, but I don't think that we made a determination.
I think it should be.
Which is the bike rack that we now have at the Cape lot? There's
That one.
The little keyhole.
the keyhole.
Yeah, we're done.
So
Yellow bike.
can we have an option for the keyhole with the Jack's logo?
We can make another box. Here's a pen.
But it may be fully custom,
I mean,
that's-
that's one of those things you can retrofit later, I mean.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as, if we're gonna do 10 bike racks, I don't like the oval coming out of the ground. I like what we have with the keyhole, but I also would like the idea of putting the logo in the first one and the last one. So,
Well,
I don't know where my back goes.
They do make that logo. That logo rack was specifically asked in the early days when we started this, when I thought the arc rack was already a chosen rack. So I said, can you put the logo rack in an arc rack? Yes. Can they put the logo rack in the keyhole rack? Yes. They can do either one. I just spent the last 5 days in Boston. I'll tell you, all over the place, they commingle both of those racks, the arc rack as well as the keyhole rack, all over town, and they interchange them block to block because they're consistent enough of an arch theme that it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have one or the other. You can commingle them, and most of the time they fit well enough that they're not sticking out like, this is obvious. We got a problem. It's not like 2 different bollards like we have now, that one's black and one's beat up. That's the 2 we have now. These would both be stainless steel. They would both be close enough in similarity. People may not even realize there's 2 separate racks being used out there. I don't have a preference to either one, just some direction to move the ball forward is where we're trying to get to.
one of the requests Dennis just stated was putting the Jack's Beach logo rack up against City Hall rather than artistic rack. And I think we need to address that first before we move forward. Who wants to keep that artistic and who wants to make it a Jack's Beach logo rack? I'm fine with the Jack's Beach logo rack, but
Yeah, I think so.
And I think what's called out there now is a series of like 6 or 7 racks. So it would be the idea where we would book in.
Right.
yeah.
And s-
So Dennis, now let's Jack's Beach logo rack at City Hall. So.
Now you gotta tell me which one, the arc rack or the keyhole rack?
That's what the stickers are for. You'll get to pick.
Fair enough.
And I would say we may need to take one that was originally gonna be these and make it into an artistic one, just to kind of, but we can look at that as an aerial. How do you?
So the big circle rack or the keyhole rack at City Hall? I prefer the big one.
I like the big one.
I like the big one.
Keel.
I guess in that location, I'd be fine with the big one.
So it's the big one.
In that location.
Thank you. That decision's made.
Are we allowed to make those decisions today? You don't vote on it. We're making decisions in the meeting. Okay.
Well, I mean,
Is there a big one that running?
I mean, they can run, with it. We need to solidify this next meeting, that's fine,
Yeah, we will.
but Dennis, write that down.
Gotcha.
So just so I understand, we vote on the ballots, whichever ballot gets the most votes is the ballot we're gonna use citywide, or at least downtown-wide.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, CRA wide.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that we have consistency.
So the trash can, the one we pick, is gonna be the supplemental trash can to, we'll call it the Public Works trash can.
Yes.
And for the artistic bike, the artistic ones over here, is it gonna be the one that gets the most, or each one of us gets to pick one?
I think it's like the top 5.
I would say the top 5, and, I would ask that, as far as where they go, maybe let staff and Dick's Height take a look at what's gonna fit best in what location.
Yeah,
And then we can offer some recommendations to you guys about, well, let's say you pick the shark, for example, where's that gonna be best suited to place? And then we can offer that to you guys at the next
I
opportunity.
don't think we need to micromanage something at that level, because I think you guys can get in there.
But we want you
and
guys
figure
to
out-
know what's gonna work where, so you know, there's a shark here and there's a whatever there.
And so if, let's just say the flamingos, because they were brought that up, the flamingos get 2 votes, then that just means they'll be in 2 different areas. And you guys figure out which of those 2 areas are
Well,
gonna go.
I think the idea is we'll take the top 5. So whatever
But there's 5
5
of
hit the
us.
top.
If there's
votes.
5
So
of
we have
us,
5 votes each.
We pick our top 5.
Yes.
out of
Yeah,
that.
pick
So
your top
I-
5, and if we have a tie, we can deal with that. We've got
Yeah.
the ability to.
And see, I
do a
look at
tiebreaker
that
if we
as,
need to.
I look at that as, that's the theme we'd like to consider.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be that exact thing.
Right.
Because, like I said, I like the surfboard thing because our logo is surfboard things.
Right.
But I may want to see what some local artists would come up at a surfboard theme. Or I like, or like a shark and maybe having a program where we pay people to give them benefits to maybe do a mural that's shark related and a shark board. So I look at that more as, these are the 3 areas I'd want to see themed throughout the beach versus those. That's how I look at it.
well, I thought what we agreed
I mean-
on, because we didn't wanna slow this thing down.
Right.
We had 6 artistic ones. We just took care of one, because that's one at City Hall.
Yeah.
So now we're down to 5 artistic ones. So we're just gonna pick these and do whatever we can manufacture done. If we wanna add an artistic one later on, we can do that, because there's different areas we can do that.
Yeah, but I think what Francis is saying,
Francis Stoll.
okay, everybody likes the surfboard, bike rack. Okay, that's the top choice. What are the surfboard, bike rack options? Because they picked one of,
No, I thought that's the option.
No,
So-
and I don't see it that way.
yeah, I think
I mean,
we are.
I'm just saying, if we're taking, we elected to take something out of the art master plan, and we have people who expected us to have artists as part of that art map, which was supposed to be community bound, we as a board should consider that was the original intent of them. And yes, it would be nice to be able to do some of them with a prefab, but it doesn't mean we should not consider the original idea of art.
There might be 10 prefab ones.
And then,
like
like, yeah,
that we, like, when we see the options, we like that one better. I think this is step 1.
I think the suggestion,
I thought this was the final step. I thought we were done after this, today.
Well, voting on it next year.
Yeah, but I mean, these,
Well, I guess-
for these 5 areas that we're talking about, this is the decision and we're done.
Well, I would like to modify that so that we have some choice of the artistic ones once we decide which direction we want to go with them.
I feel like I want to pick and then I want to let staff figure out the details. And I just want like, if surfboard wins, then get us something surfboardy.
another alternative, just as some history, is most of these up here are from 3 different vendors that I found readily available. On top of some of these, like the shark at the top right, that's a particular rack that's custom off the shelf that's designed to hold 8 bikes. If you want that built to hold 26 bikes, they will gladly build that for you. So some of this is a little bit of a combination of everything that you're saying. Depending on what choices we get, as far as themes, I guess, is best as a way to call it. I think this will provide us with some direction to try to figure out what's out there. Is it an off the rack bike rack or off the shelf bike rack that's going to be best suited? Or are we best suited to go back to one of the manufacturers and say, look, this is what we want, but we want it A, B, C, we want it built to this length, we want it built to this specification, because there's some of those, like the Dolphin rack, I think is scheduled to hold nine bikes, and I think it's like 20 some odd feet long. Well, that might not fit where we want to do it, so we might have to tweak that and go to a custom rack with the same design to try to get
Well,
it.
that goes
You
back-
guys are gonna size it.
That goes back to what Dave was saying, it's like, we'll make the determination of what we want there, and then we're handing it off to you guys,
Correct.
just for these 5.
And my thought for the artistic, Francis, to try to help you get back to what you're asking, I think if and when you get to the artist piece of this phase, if the artist comes back and says, I want to paint this ginormous mural, but that stupid ugly shark bike rack over there looks like crap and I want to build my own, I think that should be an option that you bring forward to replace that at that point in time with something the artistic creates. Might be the best bet to be able to move the project forward, leave them separate from the art master plan, but yet when the art master plan gets rolling, if that artist can or will or wants to, or your desire as a CRA board is to look at changing that rack out, at that point in time that could become an option to say, we'll pull the shark out and we'll put something custom in there to replace that art, to tie it all back together.
One more quick question about the surfboard. Is that intended to be just one large surfboard or maybe like 4 staggered ones right next to each other?
It would be, I mean, I would think that board is designed to hold 2 bikes, one on each side.
Right.
So in a situation where we had a section of 6 racks called out in the plan, it would be 6 surfboards. And I think if I remember right, there was actually 2 separate surfboard patterns. I submitted quite a few more to Cody and he eliminated some based on different criterias. Partially because we didn't believe that surfboard theme was something that you really like, so why have 2 surfboards up there when, you know, we could have made this 3 times harder by putting twice as many options up there. Just try to get some themes narrowed down.
Look, if you guys don't want to do 5 artistic, if you just want to do 3 and do something different with the other 2, or if you just want to do 1 and do something different with the other, my understanding was we were going to make this decision today and move on. We can add other specific ones, but pretty much what David said is what my vision was, what we were doing here today.
And I don't want to be argumentative, but I distinctly said that we should think of themes and areas and use that to drive a theme in certain spaces, and that was going to be those, which is why I suggested us pulling it out. So yes, I do not want to stall anything, and yes, I will vote on our next meeting, but I do not think we should tie those into a citywide vote, citywide choice for bikes. Maybe a couple of them, but I don't think that we can say we did our due diligence on taking something out of an art plan by just stamping these. I think that most of them could end up this way, but I look at this as more, this is the kind of theme I'd like there, and then let's just drive those themes down a little bit more. And in just like another month or 2 max.
I think you misunderstood. We're not going to pick one of these to be the theme for the city.
No,
Of the
not
five-
that,
of the-
of
of
our
the
art
five-
space, art
Of the
space.
5 art spaces, we're going to pick 5 different ones, so there's going to be 1 in each one of the different 5.
I understand that.
Okay.
I'm saying, I'm 100% good to vote on our big jacks ones, teardrop or non-teardrop to get across the city as our basic one. 100% don't want to slow that down. My concern is that if we say, yes, we're doing this, that the next thing I know, we're going to have flamingos pop up and we never had a chance to see what other options for flamingos are going to be in that area. I don't want that. I want to say, I'm good with this concept in these areas, but give me 1 more day or 1 more meeting to say, are we going to, for the flamingos, do we like this flamingo or do we want to see what else is out there? Or for this surfboard, do you like this surfboard or do we want to see what else? Like that's what I think for those 5 specific individual things. You guys may have thought that, but I left the meeting understanding it the way I just said.
All right, so Gary, you decide. Because I see a 2-2 right now.
I won't vote on the art ones next meeting unless we have that. I will be a no. I'll just put it right there to the front. And I'm sorry that we've been talking about bikes for a long time, but for this long time to finally get here, I will not vote 100% on this, but I will vote on a theme, and I will say I would defer for 1 more month, but I
My
would.
interpretation of our take it out of the art plan was, take it out of the art plan because we're not gonna have the coordination of artists do it in time to get the bike rack, so we're just gonna put these in, and then we can come back later with the artists.
Well, drive a
To
theme,
Right.
to drive a theme,
Correct.
right, I get that.
So this is just saying, hey, what are we putting in place until the artists get coordinated?
But what if okay,
So, really quick, it was presented, I think Kale suggested this was in all the bike rack locations, whether it's an art installation or not, to do the art rack. So that you get bike parking in place right now. It's off the shelf, it's done.
Right.
Then you can move forward with the theme, because there are themes outlined in the art master plan.
mhm.
And they are very beachy, you know, it's sort of the reef corridors and all of that. So it comes down to it's either a timing thing, and you want bike racks right now, or do you want to have the time for the artist?
I don't think 1 month to have a discussion about what those artistic ones are it's gonna delay much. What I'm almost saying is like I love we have the surfboard theme in our stuff now. It has the round circle, which goes with the round circle here. That makes sense visually to me. Put that surfboard somewhere, fine. I don't even know where, just put it somewhere. That area is considered surfboard leveling or whatever. But I may not like 5 of those, and I may not think those fit with the things that are inside the plan. So all I'm saying is that I understand that we want to push this, and I understand that we can have artists replace them, and I understand that, Dennis, and I think that's a good plan to move forward. But it doesn't mean that I think that those represent the themed areas that I want an artist to do. That's all I'm saying. I'm just asking for a little bit more time on it.
Jeff?
Do we have a very full agenda for our next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Because, 2 weeks to come up with, if we select a theme and then,
We've been 2 weeks in for 6 months.
I know, and I've been one of the ones most aggravated with it. But I agree that if we're picking a unique artistic theme, that is not the universal. And we could say, I like the idea of a dolphin, but is that the dolphin I want?
Well, that's what David says, we'll pick the dolphin and we'll let Public Works handle the rest. They'll go look at the 2 or 3 different people to see the dolphin that may fit in a specific area.
And then leave it to them to choose?
Yes.
Gary?
You're deciding about,
Well, I think I'm along the lines of what you said. Number one, I agree that the standard bike rack, what that is throughout the city, that we would put some temporary artistic bike racks in place until such time that the artists have a chance to provide their input into it. And whatever the theme is, or whichever ones we decide to put up there, I'm fine with. I don't know if that answers your question.
it does.
You break the tie.
There you go.
All
right.
So put some stickers on them.
So,
Can you tell us
Heather,
what the themes are inside that plan, please? There's 4 themes. Can you at least tell them? I think there was tides, there was.
Reef,
There
reef
was
corridor,
tides,
tides.
there was some wind. Wasn't there wind?
So the reef corridors were these longer
Right,
connections, and that's where you're gonna see like a long run of bike racks
right.
in a pretty long space. Those also would probably, this one specifically would have a mural to it, so the artist would come up with, and it's big picture, like ocean inspired, it's connecting, going back to the vision plan from 2007, connecting Jack's Beach back to the ocean.
Okay.
So I think what we love about public art is giving the artist that level of parameter, not telling them it has to be a dolphin. Then what they come back with could just truly be amazing, and it ties to the mural, it ties to whatever is happening on those corridors. The ones that are more like dot location, those are, could be a little more themed in terms of like just repetitiveness. It may not be as holistic of like a corridor type of effect. So the themes in the art master plan, there's some descriptors, there's a number of parking spaces for bikes that we require, but big picture, it's all about the ocean, connection to the beach, and that big picture.
I think a good idea might be to review the 5 areas, because one of those areas was in front of Oceanfront Park. There was about 8, if I remember right,
There were
2 sets of bike racks in front of Oceanfront Park.
Right.
So a theme, whatever that may be, might not need to tie into downtown at all, but it probably needs to tie into Oceanfront Park of some form.
And we've got a huge statue with a dolphin and a lady in it, so you could call that dolphin whatever if you wanted.
Half the time people call it Dolphin Park
Yeah,
anyway,
so,
so.
I mean, so with that mind, in my mindset, clearly those would be dolphin themed, but you, I'm not telling you where to put your stickers, but I get that, so you got
The
that.
wave works there as well.
Yeah, so you've got that area, you've got the area at the south end of Latham Plaza, you got the area, Cody, help me out.
Behind.
You got the area by the Ritz,
You got by the Ritz, you got the 2 corridors, and then there's one spot we designated at the pier along First. And they're all highlighted. I can pin this up. next to
So
that.
here, the park, behind there's a corridor behind the band shell. Is the pier part the part that includes in front of lunches? Is that what that part, is that part of the pier?
yes.
one?
Yes.
Okay, so you got pier, where are the other two?
So pier,
Is it second,
the
is
Ritz.
that the other corridor?
The Ritz, where are the other Ritz?
Second Avenue.
Right, right.
There's some
behind
existing racks right next to the Ritz.
Okay.
It's like right next to the sign.
it. Okay,
There's the Second Avenue corridor.
That's in front of your building.
right,
There is the area behind the Seawall Pavilion.
right. So,
And then
So both ends of the Seawalk, there's one behind the actual band shell, and then there's one on the south end of that plaza.
there's not.
There's not one
Just
on that end?
one behind the Seawall.
Oh, that's right.
The one south side of the park is gonna be the art craft.
Gotcha.
so the one by the Ritz is more of the
I think it was
bar scene, and then there's the part that's by the retail. So you got a retail one, you've got entertainment one, and then you've got, okay, that helps me figure out what these are fine.
Heather,
Yes, sir.
tell me how these things work.
For the last sheet, use the one where you have 5. For everything else, 3 each. And you can put all 3 on the same one if you wanted to.
So the
Or
other
you can
four,
pick your top 3, however you
the
want
other
to do
four
it.
are 3 each.
Yes.
Correct.
The first 4 sheets are 3 each, the last one is 5.
Go team.
Good luck.
All right.
Godspeed.
My work called her, we didn't have this kind of problem. We did a large culvert in the Sears Tower in Chicago. Didn't have this problem. Norwood Picasso, we did Picasso in.
Well, I do.
Hypothetically, if we do end up with this one, Dennis, if we end up with this, hypothetically, this one ends up being a lot of dots on it, we should try to see if they can burrow our logo in it.
It's the same company that makes the art rack, so yes, I can already tell you
That
that.
circle would match every
They
other
could-
circle and that would
They
be.
could do that, I knew that, because that's, like I said, that's the same company that makes the art rack,
Yep.
and so all that would be is a request.
So is this one specifically on which our generic is gonna be?
Which realistically, yeah, could be,
Park and Recreation.
I mean, you guys pretty much talked about the art rack on the top corner or the keyhole, but there's some other shapes and designs that,
Yeah, that's true.
that kind of do the same kind of thing, you could still logo. Because they could still logo in the center of this, they could still logo in the center of that, if that's what the choice, but it's the direction you guys
Are your
want.
trash cans, materials
That's on
gonna
that
match
one, it's gonna be one fifty bucks.
That would probably, unless you say you wanna go the other direction with both, and you want to both around for this.
These two?
I know ours got 15 keyboard racks, but it's been pulled out, I still got 10, I could
But then you
reuse
just
it
show
already.
us something that's right around a lot of places, a lot of them are already like that.
But that's more like a material like that.
Okay. Tell me, Miss, if there was one.
Getting worried too.
I just have one.
No,
Those concrete walls, if, let's just say, 2 police officers. Because I've had 2 officers break balls at charges.
Oh, gosh.
I'm like, how would no? Like, how did you do it?
Like, that's the last thing we do is a giant concrete ball rolling down First Street. of issue. He's communications.
Let you Google it, I've seen one on, I've seen a car on top of it. I don't know how it gets.
Do you remember when everybody was really big into Pokemon Go?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And they covered the one for Target in little Pokemon ball like things. That was
Yeah.
I had a bad
The older one you showed.
Yeah, that was like huge in our small town. People would just be like,
And it's,
what are y'all, never mind, he's just talking about Pokemon. So bad, I can't stand it.
We retired.
So bad, I was so worried about it.
Senior information, so I got the third one, you got the way.
I'm like, I'm so hungry. When I get home, I want to devour.
I just was like, unknowing. Honestly, my husband normally, you know, I know exactly. Unknown, we all got it. And he was like, hey, even Taylor says he's hearing you. So she's within seasons, she's already great.
We've got a really locally owned place in town. Weird.
My mom's like, do you know that your kid is here? He's talking on my phone every moment of the day. I know. Actually, she probably still doesn't remember that.
See that, yeah, out there, and they're like, oh yeah. Well, I'll call you want to change anything? Like, no, just big. Really? That's my weakness. I'm like, where's my is there anything like their veggies with their rice? I'm like, no, just give me all the rice. No.
I wasn't trying to like throw you in the bus, but like if you could find out.
Yep, I wasn't gonna, maybe.
All right, make a decision.
So we're gonna make sure. And then on weird, our next meeting, we're gonna sit like the communications plan that was. So we've had a big idea on that. A lot of stuff in the communications.
I have two. So these are nice.
Oh my gosh.
Did you tell me?
Yeah, I just told you. I just told you.
I've had
Obsessive honey.
I've had two. I don't have one now because yeah, I saw these and like I put them on routing sheets and stuff and I sent out. Yeah, people must I have cats and sunglasses too, which is my favorite. So if we have them,
I love it.
That's wonderful. We're uncovering all that slowly but surely.
That makes me very happy. I'm not allowed to get any.
No, I understand that, but like, how neither of them are
That makes complete sense to me. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't mean to like laying down.
Oh, no. That's okay. We're talking about food. I mean, we're talking about what we're eating for dinner. It's fine.
It's like nice.
yeah, rice is about 20 pounds.
Same company that does the rack that has this one and this one. So even if this was the choice,
I meant to show you this in the bathroom.
They got a
I don't know about that. My grandma Margie got her new Pomeranian. He is 8 ounces. 8 ounces. He's not even 10 pounds.
that was
Blue eyes or
He
is that
does.
just?
They're like a blue gray.
of this project in the release.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's a her.
So I did
They'll be on site there.
certain two height our main ordinance of people were
Obviously, we have all like the survey.
I just don't want to get bogged down.
you know, that's
That
what
we
I'm
were
trying
past.
It's almost like, oh, we get an election, so now everybody's changing. Like this.
All right, guys. But as of right, guys, we got 15 minutes. Good.
Well, there she is. This is her
I mean,
11 years.
you guys can add that stuff.
Oh my God.
Let's not do it now.
Span the hours. Security.
I think some of them are very obvious.
That's what happened.
Like trash cans. She got all tray in her face. We have five.
All right, guys.
This was to our management company. She had come up with something.
I have a question for you guys.
We had to commit like a week and a half ago when everything was still up in the air.
Jeff, we got 15 minutes. I have a question before we move forward. That one in the middle is supposed to be for a generic bike rack, and I think it looks like, and I'm not going to count, it looks like a pretty good split between the big one and the small one. Are you guys fine with just telling Public Works to use those two for the generic and not just one or the other?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
It can be, as long as they both have that little thing
You got
we
that?
talked about in the middle, okay.
I guess I don't understand what you said, but I will.
Proportionally, this one is smaller
We're just
than
gonna
that
figure out
one,
what
based on the
this
bike
one.
behind it.
But it's like the same style, the same aesthetic.
But no, we're looking, my understanding is that's supposed to be our generic. And then-
So you're looking at keyhole rack with the logo, is what you're requesting?
Well, no.
Both.
Both.
Spread out throughout the city.
Okay.
Some arcs here and some keyhole here.
Some big circles, some small circles,
Okay.
all with the, well.
With the logos on both ends?
All bookend.
Perfect.
logos.
We can make that work.
We had said we wanted the big one in front of City Hall, and then
Yes.
Because it looks like it's a pretty good split, and I think it's a good compromise.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think one thing we didn't really mention, but our direction would be to still try to maintain the stainless steel, low maintenance theme throughout everything. You know, just because, the minute you get a scratch on these in 5 years, you're trying to paint it, that paint's never gonna match ever again. And, you know, just like everything else, so, you know.
Okay, we're done with that. Let's go back over this. We got 15 minutes. You said you had something you wanted to
I
say?
just had one thing, I was just talking to Taylor about it, so I just want to make sure that our communications with city council is being addressed and that this gets shared. I also asked her about what the process was for us to utilize the city's social media, because they have a social media platform, and you know, I've been encouraged by people to go to the big newspaper to say, hey, the CRA is doing this, so people can understand what we're doing and even know that we exist. But even when I reach out to them, it doesn't guarantee it gets published. It's not like, I've done it multiple times and it's not published. So I asked, how do we do that? So she said that they're having a meeting with Jacob, is that right?
Yeah, so these are communications.
And then they can create some kind of, hey, the council or the city.
We should create our own profile.
Right, so I don't know what, so this year having that meeting with them, so we can kind of have us where we can say, we just had this workshop, these things are moving forward, or just so we can be part of that social media platform that's already out there that people are really like. So that's what I was kind of asking.
Well, I think a more effective would be keep it separate, but have the city profile say, hey, everybody, follow the CRA as well. That way we have separate messaging, and
So
people don't get confused.
I understand that, but I think that we fall underneath the city council and the city, like we're not even like a real, like we're I feel like it might need to fall underneath them, because they have control over, if we exist, they have control over a lot of the stuff that we do, and they're the ones that give us a plan that we're supposed to implement. So yeah, I get that, but I feel like if it stays underneath their wing, because that's technically the umbrella we're under, it makes sense to me. Either way, I just want to know how we get in charge of
I
it.
just think if somebody has a problem with something we're doing, the city council's gonna get the messages, and then they're gonna get annoyed, and vice versa. That's
Yeah.
why the separation.
I just want to see how we can
Yeah.
utilize it. Regardless of which way it's done, I just think we should utilize it. So those are the things I just want to say that I did talk to her about, so that we announced.
I cut you off.
Didn't, but I do want to recommend that we have some additional meetings with city council and not wait for quarterly meetings, because I want to understand what the expectations are and that we can work towards meeting those expectations, because right now I don't think we're on the same page with quite a number of the city council folks that I've spoken with, and I don't want to get to November, December of this year, and then find out that, because we haven't done anything, they want to reorganize. And I, prefer that we spend the time and meet with them and really come to a consensus on what needs to be done. And I think if we can do that, we can move along in a much more effective manner in accomplishing what needs to be done in the next 5 months.
Well, I would encourage all of you guys to meet with the different council members, and especially after the meeting we just had. I mean, because I've reached out, well, I actually have had enough to reach out to me. Fernando reached out because I said something about giving us ideas of what to do down here, and he had some ideas around the parking lots. And the mayor reached out to me, so I mean, and you reached out to Georgette. I mean, I would encourage all you guys to sit back and specifically talk about that meeting we had. What was your impression? What do you want to see? And just, and see what information you get from there. And we'll talk again next meeting about scheduling another group meeting. And once again, I wholeheartedly believe that should be in person and not virtually.
Oh, I agree.
One of the things I also got from my joint meeting was that they are looking for us to generate the ideas and push it forward. And from my perspective, I think successful projects are based on doing the basics right, which is why when I went down there, I said, okay, what are the basics we're doing wrong here? And the sidewalk was one of the things that stood up for me. If we can just be consistent, if we can turn the 16 blocks that we're in charge of into a consistent, cohesive look and feel, just like we're doing with the bike racks. So now let's look at sidewalks, let's look at the medians, all the basics, then the larger vision the city council will build off of.
Well, I still have a concern with that because we're not looking at the big vision. We're talking about maintenance kinds of items. We need to get a plan put together, because that's been my conversation with this council members that I met with since our last meeting, is that we don't have a plan. We don't know where we're going for the downtown district. We don't know where we're going for the southeast district.
I believe we have a plan. We might not be aware of the vision.
What's the plan?
That they give to us.
Yeah, we have.
What's the plan?
This thick, we've been adopting.
Yeah, we have
for
sidewalks,
years.
we have parking garages, we have,
We have a plan, it just.
Each corner has a stuff.
So now we need to push those and say, all right, what's gonna be our priority? Our consistent sidewalks that have that nice stamping, because like, on First Street, it's really nice. It's night and day between First Street and Second Street on the south of Beach Boulevard.
I'm not sure I followed we have a plan part.
We have the vision plan that's been,
It was brought up in August of last year.
and
That
we've
was
been working.
adopted in August of last year.
Jim, is
No, what you received last August was a presentation by Cliff Shepard of his firm, who analyzed all the CRA plans from day one, and he brought it up to today, and he consolidated on all of them and presented what is the exact approved plan that is based upon the vision document work that was done in 2007 and 2015. Now, as a suggestion, my suggestion is let's start and look at that again and see how we want to build upon it and change it.
Yeah, because we try to start over on a wholly new plan, that's a 4-year process.
That's right. So when we have a plan, it's about updating, considering updating the plan.
Updating the plan is.
Updating what we already have in place legally that we're operating under with all our projects.
So we need like a workshop where we
Yes.
could just focus on brainstorming new ideas to amend the plan.
That is correct.
Or the vision and see what part of that vision fits in the plan we currently
Or
have.
what might need to change based on market conditions too. I'm sorry.
Because some of the challenges that we have is the plan that was adopted back in 2007, those things haven't all been done. Other things have been done in their place. So how do we need to modify and change that so that we can get to the end result that we want to ultimately accomplish?
Yeah.
That's where I'm having the struggle.
But see, you kind of lose me when you say we gotta come up with a new plan. I don't think we do. We have to do what you said there. We have to look at where the plan is obsolete or maybe has been turned sideways and modify the plan to fit the current circumstances.
And I apologize if I'm using the wrong terminology there,
Ultimately, we were volunteers to set forward a vision that the city council put in a plan document. That's what this group is supposed to be doing. We volunteer to implement something that they give as a vision and we put in words of what we can do. The stuff that was just given to us, it was the legal version of what we can and can't do that still represents the vision that they have tasked us to do. So to me, every time I hear we don't have a plan by anybody, including some of our visitors, it gets under my skin because we do have a plan. We have to figure out where we're going to, if we're going to use, or what the vision is, and if it's still there or not, and if it's not, we have to admit it, or we have to see what fits in the plan that we have. Or we just have to throw our hands up and say, hey, city council, there's nothing here, you have to give us a new direction. That's kind of where it is for me. So it's more of a matter of where's the vision as us, where we want to focus, and is that vision inconsistent to what's allowed for us to do?
And it's not just the downtown, it's also the South Beach
Yeah.
district.
But we've had a lot of discussion about we're doing a lot of that. And it's also the same thing with how to do business. I mean, there is a way of doing business, if you just had to take time to get it all straightened out from it wasn't being done before. There is things we can and can't do, and they've told us that's why we're trying to get, that's why we try to get into the budget. To say, hey, we're allowed to do these things if it's in the budget, but we were never allowed to have them in the budget. So that's why this is the first year we pushed and pushed and pushed for years. And now we have the ability to put stuff in the budget, but we couldn't do certain things without them, without that. So we are getting there, but.
I think we need to have a workshop where we each pitch, what is our
Yeah.
5, you get 5 minutes to pitch, what is your vision of what we're gonna be doing?
Mhm.
And then when we all put green stickers on those,
I
and we
agree with
figure out
that.
which one we wanna push forward to, then we do the work to start getting that done.
To see if it's already in the plan, and if it's not in the plan,
On
how
that
do we
bit,
amend it?
yeah.
I agree with that 100%.
As an example, do we want to do the residential in the pure parking lot? That's in the plan, that's the vision, to put residential in the pure parking lot.
Conversation.
And it's in that corridor, you're right. In that corridor, it's going to be multiple use with residential
And
focus.
so
That's
are
correct.
we still on track that that's what we're going to do? And that's what we as a group want to do? I don't know. I mean, since I've
I
been
thought that
on
was
the
just
board.
a possibility.
Right. The way I look at it is, there's 25 things we can do. I'm gonna pick 5 to focus on, and that's what we're gonna focus on for the next, 5 years. I don't have to have a plan for every single item. Yet.
And
We'll
what
get
is,
there.
I'm not sure I follow you there, but, what are we gonna do with the lot that's across the street from City Hall here, the Latham Plaza parking?
That's not ours to control, that's cities, because city owns it.
But we would develop it just like we develop other pieces of property.
We can make recommendations based off the plan and
And so
that they have that.
And again, the vision plan calls for retail development, a new street developed through there. Is that what we want to do?
So I think we need to each pitch our
Yeah,
idea.
and that's why I'm saying, I want to get to a plan that we're all in agreement with.
Sure.
And that we can all, forge forward with, and I'll fight for it, that we all agree that that's the direction we want to go. But I don't have a feeling that we have a consensus.
We don't have anything to talk about. But for that specific area, my idea is like take that metropolitan zone and literally copy it right there. You have retail, parking, and residential,
And I wouldn't have that vision, so that's why we have had the discussion about vision.
And I let you talk to our association and how difficult it is to have a retail business in it.
But you're right, we do need to have those discussions, but
So that's why
I would
we've got
say
retail
it's the
space
vision
being used as
forward
a-
versus not having a plan. That's all, that's the only terminology I would change. I would just do that, an action, vision thing.
That's good.
All right, is it 5 o'clock? We have to be out here at a hard 5. Look,
Yeah.
we're trying to push it.
One of the things I think we have to do, we talked about extending the bike area all the way down to the end of our business,
Yeah.
which is 8th Street North. Is that correct?
8th
Is it-
Avenue North.
8th Avenue North. So I think we had to send them a resolution. Can we make sure we have a resolution for that, our next meeting?
Sorry, resolution.
I also want to,
Asking them to extend the full lane bike corridor to 8th Avenue North? Because we talked about it in our meeting,
Yeah,
but
no,
we need to officially ask them.
Yeah, making it so you can ride your bike in the middle of the road all the way up to 8th.
So you're talking about the shared the road
Yes.
concept,
Sure.
so there's not a separate bike lane, okay?
I mean,
Just wanna make sure we understand.
right now it ends, it used
It
to
should
end
end
on the,
at 7.
it used to end on the south side of Margaritaville, and now it's on the north side of Margaritaville.
You
We're
wanna
gonna
do
go
one more
one more block.
Okay.
And we talked about it before, but I know from the things I've heard from the city manager, he wants clear direction. So a resolution, city council, I think is clear direction.
Well, the question I have right now is front of Margaritaville, the pavement is marked as a bicycle lane. It's not marked as a Cheryl lane, so we need to change
it's
it.
marked.
It's marked.
There's a sign that says bikes use a full
And they
lane.
painted the bike arrows.
Yeah, but it would have, the way it would really have to be shown, which is, as you go a little further south, it shows it as a Cheryl lane, which is the bicycle logo with 2 lines above it. That's a Cheryl lane.
I thought they painted it.
That's not at Margaritaville,
You're talking about on the road or a sign?
on the road.
I never looked on the road, but I know there's a sign that
I thought
says
they just painted that a
full
couple
use.
weeks ago.
They had painted the bicycle path logo on there, not the Cheryl lane.
The signs, the 2 signs that correspond to both of those painted on the pavement both say bicycles share the full lane.
Well, I mean, with this resolution, it's gonna be the 8th, and then we can make sure it's consistent throughout.
We just want to make sure the markings are correct on
No,
this.
you're right. Well, we'll just make sure it's consistent all the way up.
Now, I only have one other point, I swear I'll stop talking. So my only point, just so we don't forget it, because we are voting on things next meeting about these bike racks. The one thing I forgot to ask is we had talked about looking at locations to add eventually to the plan. And I didn't know when we're going to do that, or have that discussion about where we would add bike parking. Because like, we talked about making it old historic, like the south shopping area. There's no parking really in the whole plan. And so I would like to look at options to put parking down into.
I think we can always add that, I mean, but let's not tie that to this. Let's send this on, and then we'll bring that conversation up again if you want.
We do that in the next couple
Anytime.
months or so, because I think that if we're doing it, we might as well just address that and be done with it.
Well, one last just clarification, and this follows up on our conversation we were doing the stairs. It looks like the sphere is the winner on the bollards,
Okay,
but I don't think the sphere will fit everywhere where we have bollards. So is that like the bike rack, where we'll have 2 options, and then where the sphere is not appropriate, they go with whatever,
number 2 is?
which is the top?
Uh,
Because again, in front of hot fingers, the sphere
Let's,
isn't
let's,
gonna.
I would
let's,
assume so.
let's answer that question when we vote on it.
Yeah, I would think it'd be 2. Just like we have 2 trash cans, just like we have 2 bikes.
That's what
I kind of feel the
I
same
just
way.
wanted to get that thought.
Yeah.
So, that's it.
All right, guys, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
All right, guys, see you in 2 days.
Tell Steve.